So I recently responded to a comment that somebody put out here. And then, something else kind of popped up in the periphery that I thought was actually pretty important at the end of the day. They were asking and saying, "Hey man, can you show me which PlayStation game is on Xbox besides MLB The Show?" And also, they're talking about how, these so-called Xbox games, and they said, how is it good? That Xbox is doing a great thing with their games on the PlayStation platform. Now, this particular video or this particular comment, sorry, is designed on a technicality. The technicality that MLB The Show is a game that is not published by Sony on Xbox, if you get what I mean. Because they put it out here. They said, I mean published by Sony. Does that make sense? So they're like, okay, MLB The Show is there, but it's not published by Sony. And I'm thinking to myself, what does that have to do with anything? Because the game is actually a Sony game. It's a PlayStation game. And then they said this, tell me how it's a good deal for Xbox games being on Sony platform. And once again, Sony's not giving anything up besides that ridiculous baseball game. Now, if I wanted to be petty when I answered this question, I could have gone ahead to say, actually, there are no Xbox games on there. There are Microsoft games. Actually, I could have also said, show me a game that's published by Xbox on the PlayStation platform. Because what is happening here is all of these so-called games that are from Xbox Studios are actually being published under Microsoft Corporation, or in the case of Bethesda, or in the case of Activision, while they're on PlayStation, compared to Steam, where Xbox actually uses its own Xbox Game Studios as a publishing arm. Now, I think what's going here is this, kind of thing. Like, for instance, let me show you exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the publishing technicalities. In terms of that, let's say a game like God of War Ragnarok, right? Let's just do this. God of War. We'll go on Steam as well, and I'll show you God of War as well, and I'll show you the difference. In fact, God of War on Steam was actually very interesting. Let's just do God of War Ragnarok right here. Good. It is published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Every time they publish on their PlayStation, it's Sony Interactive Entertainment. But we know at the core it's a PlayStation game. Why? Because PlayStation developed the game. In fact, let's go ahead and look at MLB The Show. MLB The Show doesn't exist on PC, but it will be published here by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Any MLB The Show you fire up, you go to its publisher name. And I'm doing this on purpose. I want to show you guys something. Sony Interactive Entertainment. But when the game comes to PC, it has PlayStation Publishing LLC. It used to be PlayStation PC LLC, but PlayStation Publishing LLC. They could have gotten a name of any other thing and called it whatever, but they wanted to stand out as a third-party publisher here, if you understand what I mean. Now, why did I go through all of this? I went through all of this because the PlayStation fan base, especially the ones that, always want to be super vocal about Xbox's business, is very, very adept at, some kind of soliloquy that they want to throw out there for everybody. Only in their minds is PlayStation allowed technicality while Xbox isn't. Only in their minds is PlayStation allowed to do something, and they can call it ridiculous because Xbox is doing much more of it, right? So that it doesn't seem like PlayStation is doing the exact same thing. And I'll explain this because the reason MLB The Show is actually on Xbox is simply because y'all are not buying enough of MLB The Show to sustain San Diego studios. That's just the reality. In fact, people are saying, well, it's because MLB wanted more money. Well, who would have paid the money? San Diego studios? Y'all weren't buying the game, so they would not have been able to stay sustainable with their game. So somewhere, somehow, they needed people to go ahead and buy this game at launch so that so-called the freaking licensing fee that you guys are talking about, right, that they needed to spend money and pay to MLB would be fulfilled while they stayed profitable. It's the same thing, or I guess a similar situation as Marvel Spider-Man 2, where they made the game with 31.5 million, I said 31.5, $315 million in terms of production cost. And then they started to pressure their own, developers. PlayStation, hold on, let me see it. Yeah, they started to pressure their own developers and their studios to go ahead and make cuts, which was actually very, very interesting at the end of the day. They were like, oh, let me go ahead and find you that article. Here it is. Sony reportedly pressured the studios to make big cuts amid increasing development cost. It was basically based on this stolen data and a breach where we saw that deep down inside, they were trying to remove 50 to 75 people strategically after they had basically launched the Spider-Man game. They wanted to cut deeply into the Wolverine team, and they actually did. They came out later, before we got the leak, and started saying, well, we're so sorry about the layoffs that were hit with this, whereas inside their internal documents, they were laying off people to be able to balance that cost because it revealed that they had gone $30 million over the original $270 million budget, and the game needed to sell 7.2 million units to break even. When we got the reports at the time, game had sold about 11 million units, and then you could tell already that they needed to basically go ahead and get this game sold as quickly as possible to basically recoup, in terms of cost and profits, because they understand, right, that they have to pay these licensing fees. So more copies need to be sold. And so what you saw with Spider-Man 2 was it did not take long for that game to make its way to PC compared to the other titles. So PlayStation as a third-party publisher is a third-party publisher to farm money, just as Xbox is a third-party publisher to farm money. And now what you're seeing in this whole category of things is Xbox is basically in the position to farm way more money than PlayStation. But what the console fanboy warriors want to do is they want to make it sound like, oh, Xbox is losing some kind of thing. They're losing nothing. If anything, they're gaining you PlayStation fans into their ecosystem to come play games, and not just games that are basically on their final leg. They're reviving it using and jump-starting it like a defibrillator using PlayStation. This is a game that you can play on Game Pass. It's a game that you can basically access, and you can basically pay if you want to get, own, in quotes, the game. You can buy this version of the game for $15.99. It's probably maybe gone on sale much steeper, and maybe somebody picked it up, and they're going to get access to the free version of this one that's coming to PlayStation. And so now all of you can jump in there and talk, and then the game can rank on Piscatella's charts and now cause more issues for PlayStation's first-party game, because think about the launch date of this game. It's already going to go ahead and put its foot on the neck of Lost Soul Aside. I don't know if anybody has ever considered exactly what the play is. This is competition. This right here is the competition that PlayStation understands that they cannot even put. When PlayStation was actually analyzing Xbox's business, I don't think they saw that Xbox was going to go in hard on their ecosystem. I don't think they actually put this on their bingo card. There's no way they can respond to this kind of stuff. So when I see people keep asking and saying, oh, what PlayStation game is on Xbox? I'm like, how are Xbox players supposed to care when they've basically been served with all of these games that are on their ecosystem? They need not look anywhere else. Why? They have games to play. Not just games. They have a lot of games to play. New, old, remake, remastered, third party that's coming their way via Game Pass. It's insane for anybody to think that, oh, somewhere, somehow, some PlayStation fan is going to actually have enough, or some Xbox fan is going to have enough attention brain span to think, oh, how I wish I could play Days Gone Remastered. Bro, have you even were you able to get through that Oblivion game? Or do you not play RPGs? If you don't play RPGs, what do you play? If you don't play any of these games and you want to play Days Gone Remastered, you should have had Days Gone Remastered. It's been out for 5 years. So now everybody has basically hedged their bets. They've bought the console at this point in the generation, or most people, right? Or have made the decision. And so this is where they are. And Xbox is like, this is the pristine time to take on this particular gaming scene. There's not a better time. They could have kept all these games, or at least some of the big ones, to the next generation and say, once the next generation launches. No, this is the time to start converting people. So those of you that are here on the, PlayStation ecosystem, what you're going to see is, as people continue to ask these questions and say, why is Xbox getting all of this, and while we on the PlayStation side aren't getting as much, because PlayStation's first-party games is not competing anymore in terms of a toe-to-toe with variety, genre, and all that. They can't do it. They don't have it. Their own boss talked about their old IP as if to say they didn't have anything. Do you remember? So this thing is a wrap when it comes to video games. Now, they can sell consoles, but all they're doing is just selling more units for Xbox to partake of. Because if a PlayStation 4 person says, man, I want to go to PS5 and I want to play more games, I now have access to Xbox games, of which Xbox has access to their money, their wallet, and their preferences without even doing anything in terms of trying to pull them to come play on their console. So I say abandon the console war thing. Read the subreddit that I sent you and see the PlayStation gamers talking about Xbox's proposition here. And I think it would enlighten your understanding. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.